right. That was amazing. Good morning, friends. How you doing? Hey, that was awesome. My name is Lisa Pavia-Hegel. My pronouns are she, her, and I am happy to serve as your liturgist this morning. I am joined by our lead minister, Krista Taves, whose pronouns are she, her, and who is with us for a very special service called Ask the Minister Anything. Almost. So here's how things are going to go today. It's a little different than our normal service. You all should have received a small slip of paper, inexpertly cut by me before the service. Sorry. And you will take that piece of paper and write down any question that you have that's, any question as long as it's not overly personal or about my dress size, okay? And you're going to put your name on it. And then as the children are coming up for Time for All Ages, we're going to pass those to the center, and our amazing greeters are going to collect those. So they're going to do some extra work today, so make sure to give them a little bit of extra love. Also hard at work today is our pastoral care provider, Megan Suter. Could you please raise your hand? Thank you for being with us today. And our welcome team member, Tim Gardner, who's in the back there. Thank you both for being here, and thank you for all that you do. Eliot Chapel is a liberal religious community committed to love, freedom, reason, and action. We are brave, curious, and compassionate thinkers and doers who welcome you in the fullness of who you are and where you are on your spiritual journey. While we are diverse in race, ethnicity, class, gender identity, sexual orientation, ability, family structure, religious or spiritual background, we are all aligned in our desire to make a difference for everyone. I also want to welcome our friends joining us online, as we are all one beautiful community. If you're with us for the first time, thank you so much for coming. As I said, this isn't going to be a normal service, but we hope you still enjoy it with us and learn a lot about our lead minister. Hopefully you received a guest form when you came in, and we'd love to stay in touch with you. So please fill that out, both sides if you have kids. And if you didn't get one, there's a QR code in the order of service, and they're also hard copies at both entrances. Afterwards, join us for our ritual of the coffee hour. It is a tried and true Unitarian Universalist tradition in Adams Hall. Just follow the crowd. If you grab a blue cup, we'll know you're new, and make sure that you are warmly welcomed. For those of you online, our coffee hour is at 1 p.m. The flaming chalice is a symbol of Unitarian Universalism. We light a chalice when we meet to signify that we are entering into sacred space. Today, our chalice lighting comes from Soul Matters. UUs come at questioning and curiosity in many ways. We were the little kids who refused to accept what the Sunday school teacher told us unless they could give us a response to that sacred mantra, why? We are the adults who push each other to hold our convictions lightly, always exploring other answers and remaining open to the possibility that our answer may not be the right answer, or at least the right one for everyone. We ask our children to attend neighboring faiths, classes, and send them to visit other faith communities. If we have any commandments, explore, learn, open yourself are surely at the top of the list. Please rise and body your spirit to sing our opening hymn, 1003, Where Do We Come From?
I'll just project. Or do you want to sing it? Hello? Can you hear me? My bad. Oh, there we go. That'll be easier. Okay, this is a round. So our lovely David's going to play it once for us, and then my half is going to sing the first part. We'll do everything all together once, and then Krista will lead the second part. And the third and fourth parts are not going to be joining us today. 1003. David.
Where do we come from? Where are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we? Where mystery, mystery. Life is a riddle and a mystery.
In Unitarian Universalism, love is at our center. Our covenants are the agreements we make between us so that love can become action. For example, the action that many people in this congregation took to ensure that Amendment 3, which will allow citizens to decide on a woman's right to choose, will be on the ballot. It is proof that when we work together, we can change the world. Please join with me in reading our congregational covenant, printed in your order of service. As a free congregation, we promise to one another our mutual trust and support. To create beloved community, we promise to be kinder to each other than we have to be. To listen fully to each other with an open mind and heart, to speak responsibly and respectfully, to find ways to improve our church for all of our members and friends. And now is the time, before we call the children up, to pass those papers to the middle and for our greeters to bring those papers forward to me, and then I'm handing it over to Reverend Taves.
All right, I would invite our children and young at heart to come down for the time for all ages. And we're going to answer questions here today as well. So some of the kids submitted their questions ahead of time, and I'm going to answer those. And then I'm going to open it up for a little while for questions from any of the other kids who didn't submit a question. So come on up. And if you write your question, if you come up with a question later, this is for the adults, just raise your hand when I start my message, and we'll make sure that your answer, your question, gets in the list. Hi, good morning. Hello, I see there's some new kids here. So I'm Reverend Krista. I'm the minister of this congregation. And today we are focusing on questions. Does anyone know why questions are so important in Unitarian Universalism? Sometimes we want to know new things. Any other guesses as to why questions are so important for us? So you can learn, yes. So you can get answers. Eventually, yes. We ask questions because they keep the door open. They keep our minds open. And yes, we do often answer those questions, but we think that questioning is a sacred thing. It's kind of like praying for us. Questions are kind of like praying for us because they are welcoming in new ideas, other people's truths, your own truths, and the world as we are evolving in our understanding of it. So, I've got a few questions that were submitted ahead of time, and then if any of you who didn't submit a question would like to ask a question, we'll have a little bit of time for that too. So our first question comes from Addie. Addie, you have two questions actually. Is there a guide on being a Unitarian Universalist? Is there a Bible, or are there instructions on being a UU? Well, we don't have a Bible because we don't believe that one book is big enough to hold all the truths in the world. And because also when you write something down, it's fixed, and truth is not fixed. It is always evolving. So we do use sacred scripture. I preach from the Bible sometimes. I will preach from Jewish scriptures. I'll preach from Buddhism or paganism or Hinduism or Islam and using those sacred scriptures. But I also use readings and poetry and fiction and meditations and all kinds of other things to inspire me in the messages that I write. But we do have guides to help us, right? There are many guides. So our congregation has a guide. It's called the Congregational Covenant. And we read a little bit of that every single Sunday to remind us of how we want to be with each other. The whole covenant is hanging on the wall beside the opening, the service opening to the kitchen. So sometime I would invite you to go read that whole covenant. It was an all-congregation process, and it was approved by the congregation. We also have Eliot's mission statement, which is like our central reason for being, and this was also put together with feedback from the congregation and then voted on. And our mission is to love courageously, grow spiritually, and inspire compassionate action. Then we have our 7 principles and 6 sources that are at the front of the hymnal, and there's an adult version and there's a kids version, and many of you use and study those principles and sources in your classes. They were created by lots of conversations with Unitarian Universalists all over the world and then voted on at a General Assembly. So you see the voting on is a pretty big part of our really important guides. They're mostly all voted on. And now we have our 7 values and the covenants, the promises we make to live them, and they were just approved at our General Assembly in June. So we have another guide for us to use in how we live. And everything you learn in religious education in your classes is about how to be Unitarian Universalist and what it means for you to be Unitarian Universalist. So that's the answer to that question. There's probably way more to that answer, but how do you become a minister in a UU church? If you become a minister, this is also Addie's question, do you have to be more extreme about the UU principles? Do you have to take them more seriously? Yes, but so it takes as much work to become a minister as it does to become a lawyer. And it costs about as much to become a minister as it does to become a lawyer. We have to have an undergraduate degree. Then we complete 3 years in seminary, and we get a Master's of Divinity. Then we have to get a psychological evaluation to make sure we're not going into ministry for the wrong reasons. We have to do an internship. We have to read about 100 books, at least, and write a lot of papers and take a lot of classes. And then we have an interview with the Ministerial Fellowship Committee. If the committee passes you and they say, okay, you're ready to become a minister, you're now in preliminary fellowship. And you can get ordained, and you can get a job in a Unitarian Universalist congregation. But you're still in preliminary fellowship. So even after you've finished all that, you have to be mentored, and you have to prepare evaluations, and your congregation evaluates you, and you have to apply for a renewal of your preliminary fellowship 3 times. And once it's been renewed 3 times, then you are in final fellowship. And then you can do things like have an intern, because you can mentor people. You can provide a lot of support to other ministers, like being a good officer, which is a minister to ministers. We have our own ministers that serve us, and they're educated to do that. They have to take classes to do that. So yes, we have our own ministers. And then you have to do at least 20 hours of continuing education every year. So that's what it takes to become a Unitarian Universalist minister and stay a Unitarian Universalist minister. Now, do I have to be more extreme about the principles? Well, we try not to be extreme in Unitarian Universalism. Our goal is to be thoughtful and intentional, but our principles and our values are at the center of my life. I think and reflect on them every day. I try to live them in everything I do, and I try to help other people live them too. And just like other people, sometimes I'm better at it than other times, but I do have to think about them all the time. All right, next, we have a question from Virginia. This is Virginia. Why did we read The Shadow of Purple in church? This was a story that was read during Ro Kelly's service on June 23rd. It was about non-binary existence, and Ro Kelly is right here. So I'm going to invite Ro Kelly to come forward and tell us, why did Ro choose that story? We need a microphone for you, obviously. Here. This one, yeah, and you can just stand there.
Wonderful. Is it on? Yes. Cool. Hi, Virginia. Thank you so much for your question. And I know you asked me a little bit like why shadows are black, right? So actually, in the book, the author was trying to say that shadows were more like a metaphor for gender. So when you go to the store, sometimes if you're looking for clothes or for toys, sometimes all the girl things are together, and that's where you find everything's pink, right? And then if you're looking for, they have a boy section too, and that's where all the Legos are and all the blue stuff is. But the kid in the story felt like they liked pink things and blue things, so girl things and boy things. But they didn't quite feel like they were one or the other. So they were just a kid, and instead of saying like, oh, that's a girl and I like her clothes, or that's a boy and I like his truck. This was just a kid, and they like to use they, them pronouns. So it was like, oh, that's a really cool person. I like their smile. So the kid's shadow was purple because the shadow really just meant gender. So they liked pink things and blue things. And if you ever mix pink paint and blue paint together, you'll see it makes the color purple. So.
I usually thought blue and red mix.
That makes the perfect purple. You're so right. Blue and red really make purple, but it's like a lighter purple because pink is red and white. So yeah, but you're very right.
And we get a science lesson at the same time. Thank you, Ro. So Virginia has another question. Can I read the children's story in worship? And my answer is probably I wouldn't ask a kid to read the story. However, I would love to have help with my stories. So if you would like to help me with a Time for Ages sometime, let me know. Would you like to do that? Help me sometime? Yeah. And if any of the rest of you would like to help me sometime, you can either tell me after the service, or you can tell your parents, and your parents will tell me. And then I will know who wants to help during the service.
Maybe I could schedule it on my calendar.
Well, yes, let's get out your parents' smartphones, and we will see about doing that. And then we have another question. This is from Sid Swift, right there. How did you get started on your spiritual journey? Actually, I got started with questions. I was 4 years old, and it was time for lunch, and I went to the bathroom, and I got up on the step stool, and I was washing my hands for lunch, and I looked in the mirror, and my blue eyes were looking back at me. And I asked myself, why do I have blue eyes? And why am I Krista Taves? And why am I living on Zion Side Road? And why am I in this family? And those questions started my spiritual journey. Are there any other questions from you all before we go? Any other questions? Well, if you think of, did you have a question? No. If you think of one, tell your parent or your guardian, and they will send it to me, and I will answer it. And I'll send it back, okay? So let's sing you off to your activities. Our meditation this morning is called May We Seek the True Questions by Linda M. Hansen, who is a colleague and friend of mine. So I would invite you, as you are willing and able, to join me in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Make sure you're comfortable, you feel grounded, whatever that means for you, focusing in however you do that. Much of our human struggle is with what we do not know or understand. It is often difficult not to want answers, or even more difficult not to think we have them already. May we experience what we do not know, not as individual failure, but as an invitation to community. May we seek not the true answers so much as the true questions, knowing that true questions make our lives meaningful, even if sometimes restless. May we be grateful for the restless voices in our communities. Let us take a few moments of silence to listen for the restless voices within ourselves. Let us lift up the names of those we would hold in our love and care. And finally, let us have a moment of silence in honor of member Ron Kirkpatrick, who passed over on Tuesday, August 13th. May we be good company to one another in our questions and in our journey. So may it be. Amen. I invite you to stay seated for our meditative hymn, number 403 in the gray hymnal, Spirit of Truth, of Life, of Power.
David's going to play it for us once, and then we'll sing it twice.
offertory today. Lisa is going to be gathering all your questions and sorting through them and preparing them for our message time. So, you want to do the offertory?
I can.
Alrighty.
Unless anybody has any additional ones that we didn't get before, if so, please just raise your hand and wave and we'll grab them. All right. I haven't read this over, so we're going to do our best. Every week at Eliot, we give away half of our offering to an organization in the community that lives our core values. This week, Eliot Chapel will share our bounty with UUSC's Community Accompaniment Program with Asylum Seekers, CAPAS. They support communities of faith and as they host and accompany individuals and families seeking safety through the process of obtaining legal asylum in the United States. CAPAS has been invaluable for Eliot Chapel's immigration justice team since 2019. Their guidance helped us first to get ready to sponsor an asylum seeker, and then through the challenge and joy of having our first immigrant family amongst us. And now that Honduran family is here, and we continue to benefit from their support. They're a wonderful organization, so let us be a generous people. Please join me in reading the dedication of gifts located in your order of service. To the work of the church, which is weaving a tapestry of love and action, we dedicate our lives, and these are offerings. This reading is called Totally Like Whatever, you know? By Molly Taylor. In case you hadn't noticed, it has become uncool to sound like you know what you're talking about, or to believe strongly in what you're saying. Invisible question marks and parenthetical you knows have attached themselves to the ends of all of our sentences, even when those sentences aren't questions, you know? Declarative sentences, so called because they used to declare things to be true, as opposed to other things that are totally, not, had been infected by like a totally hip and tragically cool interrogative tone, you know? Like, don't think that I'm uncool just because I've noticed this. This is just like what I saw on TikTok, okay? It's like what I've heard. I have nothing personally invested in my own opinions, okay? I'm just like inviting you to join me in my uncertainty. What has happened to our conviction? What are the limbs out on which we used to walk? Have they been like chopped down with the rest of the rainforest? Or do we have like nothing to say? Has society become so like totally, absolutely, you know? That we've gotten to this point where it's just like, whatever. I know. So like actually our disarticulationness is like a clever sort of thing to disguise the fact that we've become the most aggressively inarticulate generation to come along since, like forever ago, like the 80s. I entreat you, I implore you, I exhort you, I challenge you. Speak with conviction. To say what you believe in a matter that bespeaks the determination with which you believe it. Because contrary to the wisdom of the bumper sticker, it's not enough these days to simply question authority. You have to speak with it too.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Beth. Thank you, David. And thank you, Lisa, for a wonderful reading. So let's just get to it, shall we? All right, so I did get some questions ahead of time, and so as I promised, I'm going to do those first. So Steve Harvey asked this question. Steve's over there. When someone asks me about Unitarian Universalism, I'm often at a loss for how to explain. Does this sound familiar? Even if they're looking for a short answer, can you recommend an answer that is succinct and easy to remember? Yes, I can. I got this one from Reverend Cheryl Walker, who's a colleague of mine that I respect tremendously, and I heard her say this. I'm like, I am taking this home with me. So she goes back to our origins. She says, early Unitarianism proclaimed the unity of God. Early Universalism proclaimed that God is pure love. In our 21st century pluralist, Unitarian, Universalist tradition, this has evolved into a deep conviction that everything is connected and that we are held by a love beyond our understanding. The next question is from Ann Ruger, who is sitting over there. Sometimes I worry that Unitarian Universalism offers me too many choices. A year ago, I read about spiritual naturalists, and I thought I'd finally found my tribe. A few weeks ago, I heard Carl Serbel's sermon on the happy humanist, and I thought, oh, that's what I am. And last Sunday, I heard your sermon on Buddhism, and I wanted to go right home and be one. Does this scattered approach to belief make me a person unwilling to commit, or a person picking what speaks to me most deeply? Would I be better if I could settle on one deep dig? Yeah. Well, it's interesting that our openness to many different ways of being a faithful person is both our strength and our Achilles heel. It's our strength because it just opens up so many possibilities. It's such a freeing experience that each one of us is on a deeply personal spiritual journey, and that we can discern what feels right and true for us and the path by which to live it. But our weakness is, and this is something that Minister John Robinson, who is our Minister Emeritus, he said this when he served for over 20 years until about the year 2000. He said, we often speak about our faith being broad but not very deep. And we have tried many ways to address this. So yes, sometimes we become dabblers. Pick a little bit of this that feels right, pick a little bit of this that feels right, a little bit of this. But the danger of picking and choosing and dabbling without really understanding the traditions and the histories and cultures and practices and ideas you are inviting into your life can do harm. It can be disrespectful to those who do fully commit their lives to that path. And particularly as Unitarian Universalism is a predominantly middle class, white denomination, we do have diversity in our congregations, but that is just predominant. It's the pattern. Many of us have the privilege to dabble and to try. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't consider different paths, but be informed about them and be intentional and careful in the way you integrate them into your life, in a way that is being respectful for those for whom this is their primary path. Now, our anchor is our values. If you're anchored in our values, then whatever path you choose will strengthen your Unitarian Universalist faith and how you live it. Next, we have a question from Libby Reimer, and I don't know if Libby is here. Pardon? In the balcony. Hi, Libby. Can you suggest a couple of books for devotional, inspirational reading that follow UU tenets or humanism? Something with daily reads or short chapters. Well, there is a blog I discovered after getting your question. It's called Words of Wisdom, Daily Reflections for the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Gwinnett and larger community. And it offers daily readings from a wide variety of UU ministers, theologians, poets, writers, and it's wonderful. And I will post the link on the Eliot UUers Facebook page. And there's another book I'd recommend if you're looking at humanism specifically. It's called Humanist Voices in Unitarian Universalism, published by the UUA bookstore. And there's wonderful reflections from people within Unitarian Universalism for whom humanism is their primary path. All right, the next question would tell a lot about someone who just joined or just became involved in our congregation, so I'm not going to name them, but I'm going to answer the question, but know that I know who they are, right? What insights can you offer about leaving harmful churches or cults, navigating boundaries, and familial alienation? So many of us come from experiences of religious abuse. I am fortunate not to have come from that experience, but many Unitarian Universalists have. They have left the faith of their origins, and they have found a new way. Now, sometimes these experiences range from churches with theologies that are oppressive and abusive to religious communities that are not unlike abusive domestic situations. They rely on isolation, poor or non-existent boundaries, and shame to control those in the system and to keep them there. So that's a very difficult experience to come from, because to leave your community then means leaving your people. You could be losing your family, your close friends, your support network, maybe even your economic stability. Now, there's a lot of advice for those planning or wanting to leave an abusive relationship that I think can be drawn upon for leaving an abusive community, especially if you don't have control over your own finances. So there's nuts and bolts advice that includes financial advice and other resources so that when you leave, you have options and can take care of yourself. So, and it's all over the web. You'll be able to find this information on the website, and also there'll be resources if you look at the websites of different shelters in our area. So sometimes that's not possible. Sometimes you have to leave quickly, but get your ducks in a row as much as possible so that you can still have a roof over your head and food on your table. Then how do you take care of yourself after you have made this move? Find communities where you can heal and build a support network. You've left an isolating situation, and you may have severed and significantly changed the relationships with your family and others that you love. So build new networks. Make sure that you intentionally work to prevent yourself from isolating further, because the isolation is also a form of abuse. So this could include peer support groups with those who have come through a similar journey, or other things like a covenant group. Here at Eliot, we have small groups, covenant groups, where you build relationships and explore your spirituality. We also have a transition support group that meets the first and third Thursdays of the month in the evening in the library. That could be a place for you to go and get support and be of support to others. Get professional help to help you recover a sense of yourself, anchor in your chosen values and beliefs, manage the triggers and the shame, work with the grief of what and who you've lost, and learn and practice setting boundaries. And recognize that your recovery is likely to be a lifelong process. The trauma doesn't just end because you've left the traumatic situation. Learn how that trauma manifests in you. Be patient with yourself. Build your emotional toolkit to help you navigate your trauma. And remember, you weren't allowed a self-understanding in an abusive religious situation. So self-understanding is your freedom. And finally, when you're steady enough, help others who are on a similar path. Share your wisdom, love them, and be a safe place for them as they find their own freedom. Michael Hennon asks this question. Should I see Michael today? Oh, there he is. Hi, Michael. Elon Musk, the world's richest person and the executive CEO of Twitter, can do pretty much anything he wants. And the board of trustees of Twitter/X would not dare to go against his wishes. As both the spiritual leader and executive leader of Eliot Chapel, what makes your role and position any different from Elon Musk? Other than access to vast wealth, of course. And if by some miracle you did have access to vast wealth, how would that change the character and direction of your executive leadership? Woo, Michael. So, first of all, Elon Musk owns the company. I don't own Eliot Chapel. Corporations are not democracies. Eliot is a democracy. I was elected. Elon Musk was not elected. We have bylaws approved by the congregation that establish how the church runs. We have governance documents approved by the board that you elect that implements a division of powers that tells me what is my responsibility, where do I have authority, and where I don't. And that also indicates clearly the board's responsibility. So the board is what we call the ends body. Like we have ends and means is the language we use. So the board establishes the ends, like where do we want to go? Who do we want to be? What's our priorities? And I'm responsible for the means. So I am the creator, doer, coordinator, leader, and the board is basically casts the direction, which is cast by communication with you. So ultimately, the authority of the congregation rests in you. But in truth, none of us own this congregation. The mission of this congregation owns us. And we are responsible for living that mission, which also means that our job is not always to please people. Any leader, your job is not to please people. It's to inspire, it's to direct, and it's to guide. And sometimes that means people aren't going to be happy. But if you're true to your mission, then hopefully you're on the right path. Now, the next question, if I had access to vast wealth, wouldn't that be nice? Personally, I'd probably pay off all my family's debts, pay off all my debts, set up everybody for the rest of their lives, and keep being a minister, actually, because I don't know what else I'd do. Now, if the church came into incredible wealth, now that's a different question, and actually there's an example of a church where this happened. So Shelter Rock Unitarian Universalist Congregation, it's in the Northeast. A member donated stock to the congregation. Somehow the paperwork never happened. It was all forgotten, and when that person died, the paperwork was in their stuff. So then it was found that those shares over the decades were worth millions and millions and millions of dollars. So the church did all of a sudden have this massive influx of wealth. So the congregation set aside some of the money for its own needs, but most of it was used to establish the VEACH program, a foundation fund that has given away millions in grants to UU organizations, including congregations and non-UU nonprofits that share our values. So I would develop a proposal like this one for the board. I would take a similar approach, and then that would come to you for a congregational vote. That's what I would do if we had a windfall. All right, now it's time for the questions I have not seen, and I'll move here, and you can move there. There we go.
I'm kind of combining the first two because they're similar. What do you find to be the most satisfying or enjoyable part of being a minister?
Sunday mornings is my favorite part. Preparing for Sunday mornings is my least favorite part. It takes sometimes almost half of the week to prepare for worship service, and everything else has to be done in the other half. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is everything else. Thursday I start writing, Friday I rest, I get back to work Saturday at about 3, 4 in the afternoon, and I write until I'm done, which could be 10, could be 1.
I can attest to that because I saw when your comments were coming through on the Google Doc last night. What profession would you be if you were not a minister?
Oh, I'd be a journalist.
Very cool.
That was my first dream.
I've tried to mix these so you get light tone and then
Sure.
harder tones so that we didn't just go down rabbit holes. What is the best response to hate in order to change that tone to love? And that's from Linda, is it Kornecki?
Mm-hmm.
Kornecki.
Well, I'll give you an example of where we practice this every week, and that's our vigil. So the vigil, we get a lot of honks and support and love, but we also get, harassment and sometimes abuse. Shooting the finger, yelling slogans. Oftentimes big trucks will just gun it and cover us in smog, stuff like that. And we keep smiling and waving and we say we love them. So they can do it, they're doing what they're doing, but we will not change our expression of love. And I think that is one of the ways to engage with hate. It doesn't mean you let hate get away with it. I mean, we're out there for a reason, and in our lives, we see a lot of hateful stuff happening in our congregation, in our community, in our politics, and we talked about this last week, about staying in the moment and being grateful for what happens while you are working forward to manifest your values in the world. If we become hateful, we're no different. Now, it's normal to feel those feelings. I feel hatred sometimes, deep hatred for those who are hurting us so much right now. But I choose what I do with it. And I think that's the responsible way to deal with a very natural human feeling.
What spiritual figure or teacher has been the most inspirational or influential to you?
Oh, that's an easy one. My great-grandfather was, I come from a line of Mennonite ministers on both sides of my family. Oh, just so many ministers. And my great-grandfather, he was the last minister still alive in Ukraine during the Stalin years. And somehow he made it. He went to a labor camp for 5 years. He made it by befriending a guard and taking care of the pigs so he could eat the pigs' food as well. That's how he survived his 5 years in a Siberian labor camp. But during that time, also all the Orthodox priests were gone. And an Orthodox couple came to him with a newborn baby and asked if he would baptize the baby. Now, in the Mennonite tradition, we do not do infant baptism. In fact, it was one of our claims during the Radical Reformation. Only baptism upon confession of faith. You had to be an adult and you had to be able to consent. But despite that, he chose to do the baptism. Because he's like, who am I to judge in this horrific time? Who am I to deny hope to this couple with all of the horrific stuff that's going on around us? And he got really criticized for that by other leaders when he got to Canada, when there actually were some leaders that reemerged again, but he never wavered on his decision, and that is very inspiring to me. His gentleness, but also his firm convictions. And you just always felt you were loved in his presence.
I guess along with the whole taking care of the pigs thing, can we have a praise the pet service again? And that's from Marge, is it Baylor? I can't quite read the last name.
Yes, I keep thinking I'm going to do that, and then it slips my mind, and I'm like, oh, I didn't schedule it again. So Lynn Murdoch has often done a blessing of the animals, but just remind me. So I get it on the calendar, because I would love to do that. I'd like to learn how you've done it. Like, do you actually bring animals into the sanctuary? What if they poop? What do you do then? Anyways, pardon? Not on the new carpet.
Oh, I'm going to keep it in the fun part for just a hot second. Have you ever resolved to actually get more sleep, and then how did that go?
Resolve to get more sleep?
Because it says, did you ever actually resolve to get more sleep, and how did it go?
Oh, I've always resolved to get more sleep. And sometimes it works really well. I catch up on my sleep usually on Thursday nights and Friday nights when I'm not, usually I don't schedule any meetings on Thursday night. I only do meetings Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So Thursday evening, I just it's my time. I'm resting.
In addition to rest, how do you find fortitude to do what you do?
How do I find fortitude? My family, my partner. my own inner convictions. And I would say you help me have fortitude, because I'm always so moved, and I have such great relationships with so many of you, and the leaders in this congregation are outstanding. And also my colleagues. You ministers, we're like a big extended family. You would not believe how many Facebook groups we have. We talk nonstop, and we get support from each other, and we love each other, and sometimes we challenge each other, and I get a lot of strength from my colleagues.
Okay. As an addendum, how does UU help shape your values? And how do your values help your UU practice and your sermons?
Oh. So I'll start with the first question. How does what shape?
How does Unitarian Universalism help shape your values? And how do your values help shape your practice and your sermon?
All right. So I would say that what brought me to Unitarian Universalism is that I already had those values, but I'd never been part of a faith that actually put them front and center, as opposed to a specific belief about a deity. So the values matched mine, but then they also carried me further and asked me to go deeper into my values until they became richer values, and I understood them more, and I integrated them in my life more fully. My practice, my spiritual practice is gratitude. Gratitude is very, very important to me. Always recognize what's being offered and the wonderful things that are happening around you. And it keeps me in a place of love. I hope that it helps those who are around me know how great they are, or how good they are, or how much I appreciate them. And so gratitude is my practice. And I try to practice gratitude in everything, whether it's from meetings, pastoral care, social justice, and my sermons. Which is why I always say thank you for coming at the end of the service. I really mean it. Thank you for coming, because your coming creates this space.
So we have two left. One is a relatively easy question, and one is a slightly deeper question. Which one would you like?
Let's start with a deeper question, and then we can end with the easy question.
Okay, sounds good. What happens to us when we die? What is a soul?
I knew this question was going to come up.
And now you know why I gave her a choice.
All right, so I'll tell you what the Unitarian Universalist response would be, which I've often given, and then I'll tell you what my own feelings are about what happens when we die. So the Unitarian Universalist response is we really don't focus on what happens when we die, because we have no control over it. Everything is speculation. We focus on living, and living fully. Now that doesn't mean that some of us don't have very specific understandings of what happens. We have, many of us have understandings of what happens. Some are humanists or atheists or agnostics, and that may convert into a belief that when you die, that's it. You are a physical being only, and when your body stops, so do you. You no longer exist in any way. And then there are other ways of understanding what happens if we do carry on in some way. We have a whole range of understandings about that. My personal belief is that we do carry on. Something of us carries on when we leave. Now, this may be what I need to believe, but that is where I really feel it, and I have felt presences. So my brother, Martin, he was 46 when he died, and we were a year apart, and we were raised as twins. So I lost my twin 7 years ago, and I helped take care of him when he died, and grieved for a very long time. I think it was a year and a half to 2 years before I really smiled again. And he came to me. He came to me every night for the first 3 months. And he had cancer. He had multiple myeloma and primary plasma cell leukemia, so you couldn't hug him, or he would break. The bones would break. So in the dream, I would go and I'd say, "Can I hug you?" And he's like, "Yes." I said, "Can I hug you like I want to?" He said, "Yes." So I'd hug him really hard. And then I'd say, "Are you back? Like, are you really back?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm back." And every dream started out that way, and then we'd have different adventures. And then he would go away for a while, and I'd go like, where the hell have you been? You know, you've been gone for a while. I need you again. Well, this happened. I did this in the spring because he'd been gone for a long time. He showed up in my dream every night for 2 weeks until it got to be kind of annoying. And I said, all right, I've had enough. It's good. You can go back to your, like, whatever you're doing on the other side. And so he hasn't visited me for a while, but yeah, so I do, and it may be that my mind is creating this, some synapse in my brain, and I don't really care because it is really, I really feel and I want to be reconnected with the people that I love most deeply, and my dogs. Yeah.
What would need to happen? How and when could we get a meditation group going again, especially after your sermon last week?
Anybody want to do a meditation group? All right. Okay. Meet by the name tags after the service. There, we have a meditation group now. If you want to be part of a meditation group, yeah, just meet out there. And then one of you just connect with me and let me know what's up and how I can help you.
And that's all.
I think that's all the questions. Woo. Thank you. I invite you to rise in body or spirit for hymn number, I don't have anything in front of me.
Oh, hold on.
354?
What they said.
354. But not every verse because it's a long hymn. Please join me in extinguishing our chalice flame with the words printed in your orders of service. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Please be seated for one more undeniably beautiful musical gift. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for creating this presence. Thank you for blessing this congregation with your very being. Let's have coffee.